How many of you thought that was just like over the top, having Josh sing? I mean, was that not over the top? This is what I want you to do. I want you to do something for me that will make sense only to us and him probably, but the camera is videoing everything this way. So I want you guys to stand and turn and face the camera and give Josh a round of applause for serving us and also for singing. Just makes you mad though when he stands up there and sings, no music, no nothing, it sounds so good. I mean, it's like I got to, Jennifer, of course, I have to twist her arm to show me things like that on her phone. It's between Jennifer and Rita, we watch a lot of kid videos up here. But what an honor it is. What an honor. What a young man he's become. I'm so proud of him. And Josh, you're going to get this CD, I'm sure, and I am so proud of you for who you are and the man you've become. So praise the Lord. We love that. We love that. We live in a country right now that's changing. It's changing drastically. We've lost concept. One, of who our heroes really are. And what a hero really looks like. And what a role model should be. And one of the things that I think will probably stay with me until whenever I go be with the Lord or whatever it happened just a few minutes ago. I was in the back and one of the veterans that stood came by and he had tears in his eyes. He served in Vietnam. And he said, no one's ever called me a hero before. And I thought, what a shame. Whether I agree with the war or whether I don't agree with the war makes no difference for men and women that were willing to go serve. And so, I think our country took out on these men and women their frustration with the government. And I thought, what a shame that a person could live their entire life having served in a place where, danger was imminent. And never really think of themselves as one of our heroes. And so those of you guys that served, how many of you served in Vietnam? You are. Regardless of what happened when you came home, you are our heroes. You are our heroes. Amen. We have slipped down this slope, if you will, of dishonoring the places that are supposed to hold honor. The Word tells us that we're to honor those who are to pray for those who lead us, and we do. But the office that a person holds can be tainted by the character of the person that holds the office. And though we honor the office, and we should, the truths about the people that are demoralizing and tearing apart our country still have to be told. We're going to watch a video of a man that I think was one of our. He wasn't perfect. He had faults. But one of the men that I know that I feel like was one of our leaders that I honor and respect. And it's a tribute that Ronald Reagan does on Memorial Day. And I just thought, wow, that's what a president is supposed to do, is bring honor to those who serve this country and not apologize for those who serve this country. I'm a wee bit radical, but at the same time, we have got to begin to restore honor where honor belongs. And where it's... Well, the church is responsible for bringing the things that we're responsible for back to the table. And what we're responsible for is to bring honor and reverence back to God and His ways. To stand in the face of those who would try to change our country to a nation of immorality and to demise and destroy the Constitution. We've gotten to the place where the lines have been crossed, how laws are changed. The Supreme Court can strike down a law, but they cannot make a law. That's all been confused. And so we've got to begin as a Christian nation, which we are. We've not lost that. To begin to reflect those morals and principles at the voting booth and to dig deeper into what's going on in our country than just watching Fox, CNN, or MSNBC. We've got to go deeper than that. You know what I'm saying? We're being told a lot of things, but we've got to go deeper than that. Am I an alarmist? Am I one that wants us to go completely radical? Well, it was pretty radical when men and women were laying on a battlefield having lost their lives. It was pretty radical when they didn't come home to moms and dads. It was pretty radical when babies never got to see mom or dad again. That was pretty radical. That they would give their life for us, wasn't it? And we're letting things, and I know it's like, well, who are we to believe we could do anything? But listen, a raging fire starts with a spark. And the Church of Jesus Christ in America has got to be the spark again. Whether in a small town, a large town, whether a mega church or a small church. To begin to stand up again for those things that are right. To begin to just, there's an avalanche, of coming in of things that are trying to change the world. Trying to mess with and pervert the minds of our young people. And we've got to begin to stand strong again. And stand for what's right. Call a hero, a thug, a thug. I'm sorry. But we've gotten things reversed. We give people rights that should still be hidden in a closet, ashamed of the sin that they're now committing. Rather than lifting them up and telling us to go in the closet and be ashamed of the God that we represent. And so everything has gotten twisted. Everything has gotten twisted. Is it bad for us to call sin, sin, to hate sin, love the sinner? I mean, we can be in that place, but we've still got to call sin, sin, and we've still got to stand against it. Because if the church compromises on morality, then there is no absolute that the world can ever find. And so we're going to talk about some things today. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take a survey. This is a fun survey. I thought I'd have a light moment. I don't want to get too heavy on everything right now. But when you see things like the monument with all the names of those who served, desecrated by some people that disagreed with the war that was fought, as they did graffiti all over that wall that you saw. And they'll probably be given the spank on the wrist, because to do anything otherwise would be coming against freedom of expression. You can do all those things, and let me see, I believe it was 1990. How many of you have been born before 1990? These are things that have changed. We're going to talk about some things that changed in the last 100 years. Some of them because the church sat silent, and because we didn't know that we were supposed to fight against it, or we didn't have time, or it wasn't relevant to us. You know what I'm saying? But in 1990, the Supreme Court struck down the law that it was illegal to burn the American flag in 1990. Because that was an infringement on the right of free speech. Where does that stop? You know what I'm saying? All this identifying with different groups and different things. I saw this deal on the news, and I'm sure some of you, or maybe it was something that was emailed to me. It showed a copperhead. Have you seen that? Showed a copperhead on the ground. And the caption above it says, "Don't worry about me. Today I identify as a grass snake." Yeah. Copperhead's still a copperhead. No matter what we call it. What was the average life expectancy, you would think, in 1915? What was the average life expectancy of a man in 1915? 100 years ago. 100 years ago. Now listen, guys. You know, I'm like over a half a century old. And so this is like stuff that's pretty relevant in the realm of I know nobody in here is close to the 1915 birthday. But when you start thinking about things in the last 100 years that have changed, the last 100 years that have just, oh my gosh, more changes than have ever happened in the time period before that. We are in a generation, in a time frame, if you will, of monumental change that if the world continues, these 100 years will have been very significant. And I've lived 60 of them. 59 in a few months. But the average life expectancy in 1915 of a man was 47 years. Wow, yeah, I'm already gone. You know? Seriously. Okay, let me ask you this. What percent would you say of the homes in 1915 had a bathtub? Somebody? Oh, no, there's a few bathtubs. We weren't that backward of a nation. 20%. We were at 14% of the homes had a bathtub. In our generation, it's like we just kind of take for granted. We go take a bath or a shower and it's like, but in 100 years, these are privileges. These are things that have happened, and only 8% of the homes at that time had any form of a telephone. I would have to tell you, and I bet I could get some of you if I said, "Did you turn your cell phone off today, now, in here?" Okay, all right. The tallest structure in the world in 1915 was the Eiffel Tower. Some of these things they're just mind-boggling. This is the one I want you to answer. Okay? You say, well, is this a sermon or is this just a history lesson? This is just fun right now. Okay? And so, what was the average wage in 1915? What would you say it was? Somebody give me an answer. How much? 10? 5? 15? You're all wrong. Okay. Now, it's 22 cents an hour. 22 cents an hour in 1915. Of course, you know, for David and Michael, when they were up here, it's a little more recent, that 15 cents an hour. But, you know. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, a dentist could make $2,500 a year. $2,500 a year. An accountant made $2,000. I was pretty amazed at that. But the average person would make between $200 and $400 per year. This has all changed, and you think about things that are today that are just unreal. Only 6% of the nation in 1915 had graduated high school. 6%. I mean, it's like people, we're involved in a jet stream of change just in our lifetime, in the last 50 or 60 years. And that's the reason people that are maybe 70 or 80, I mean, it boggles their mind to see what's happened in our world. Those are great. Those are good things. Those are good changes have come, but with those changes have come some other things that are not so good. June 25th of 1962, prayer and the Bible were taken out of our public school. Let me read this. Some of you have heard this before, but in 1940 to 1962, these are the teachers' complaints as listed. Talking out of turn. This is what kids were doing. Chewing gum. Making noise. Running in the halls. Getting out of turn in line. Oh, for the days. In 1962 to present, from the time that they took the Ten Commandments and the Bible and prayer out of school, these are the things that teachers are now dealing with today. Rape, robbery, assault, and arson. But our world says God's really not relevant in our culture. But our culture says without God, we are destroying ourselves. God, this day, this Memorial Day is really, when we think about it, it's a lot about, yes, those men and those women who gave their life, but let's take it a little further. What they give their life for? They gave their life for an America that we have all enjoyed, that we're now seeing slip away because we have compromised. We have men and women who are compromising the integrity of the Constitution as they run our country. And the issues that we talk about aren't really the issues. I mean, we debate all these things, and I want to stand up and say, let's debate what's really an issue. You know? I mean, let's debate let's get it all laid out that if you're a politician or just a common worker, if you break the law, you break the law, and there's a penalty. Yeah. Right. But we're getting to a place, as the Roman Empire did, before its demise, that the people lost all power. The government became all powerful over the people. They taxed the people to the point, for their own benefit, to the point that they saw a collapse in their economy. Because the politicians didn't go and take care of what the people wanted. The politicians took care of themselves. All they would be concerned about today in our culture is getting elected. Then they do what they want to. Now, memorials are very important for a reason. God has instituted and given us in His Word places where He wants us to remember something. Not just because we remember it, just so we can write it down in a history book, because when you remember something, when you're told to remember something, to have a memorial, it's for the purpose of what was going on and what was happening at that point. In Exodus, let me just read this. In Exodus chapter 12, verse 13 and 14, it says, "The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you live, and when you see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt." He's saying, at the Passover, he's saying to all the nation of Israel, and you know the story, the death angel is going to come. It's the last plague to hit before the people are released, the nation of Israel is released from Egypt. He says, this is what I want you to do. I want you to paint the blood over the doorpost of your home. The blood's going to spare your life. It's going to give you life. It's going to give you an access not to be touched by the death angel. But then in verse 14 he says, "Now this day will be a memorial to you, and you shall celebrate it as a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You are to celebrate it as a permanent ordinance." So he says, not only do you do this, I want you to remember this. I want you to remember not that, hey, we put blood over the doorpost. That was really a neat thing that God had us do. No, it was our deliverance. I want you to remember the role God played, he said. I want you to remember the role I played in your deliverance, not only from death, but deliverance from the nation of Egypt. I want you to remember that for a reason, so that you can tell your children, so that you can tell those that come after you what a great God I am, and how I have done these things for you, and how important I was in your life, that you would be obedient to what I said. And so he wanted them to share that every year in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. He wanted them to share that. Remember this, remember this, remember this. We have memorials today. Today's Memorial Day. We have memorials to remember those who gave their life. but not just to say we're going to remember those who gave their life, but what they gave their life for. They gave their life so you and I could do this right here. They gave their life so our children could go outside and play on the playground without some government coming to take them. They gave their life for a purpose. So Memorial Day is not just about the loss of flesh and blood, but it's about what that loss stood for. And that's where we're missing it in our country. It breaks my heart to see what's happening in our country and the men and women that are still living, that have served our country, to see what they must be thinking. What if I had lost a son or a grandson in a war that now is that our country is giving away the freedoms that they fought to give us? How that would break your heart and feel. They wonder why America is angry. They wonder why our veterans are angry. They wonder why people are upset. It's because they are trampling underfoot the very thing that we should be most proud of. And so God says, I want you to remember some things. I want you to remember the whys of what happened. And so we've got to do that. We've got to begin to bring that back into our culture. We've got to bring back into our culture that there is honor and there's integrity in serving, that there's people that give their life for us, that you don't take the right away from a cop, from a police officer, and give it to a thug because you are more open-minded. If we see our government keep doing what they're doing, there will be nothing but chaos and murder rampant. Because if you tell a police officer you can't fight back, you can't use the means given you to protect this person over here, then there's going to be a time when they say, I'm just not going to be a police officer, or I'm not going to do anything. We live in a time period when they're trying, if you listen to Bernie Sanders, if you listen to him, when we will not have doctors. We will not have people to serve in those capacities, because it takes a little bit of an education to get the name doctor beside your name. And if there's no benefit to that, then why do it? But he's trying to get, if Sanders were to get in, then he's trying to destroy everything that America is. Now listen, we've got to look at all that. He may sound good every once in a while to somebody. I don't know who that would be, but if it's you, let's talk. But I'm just telling you, he may sound like he's got a plan. He doesn't have a plan. It's the same plan that we've been under for the last 8 years, and that is to destroy the fabric and foundation of who and what this country is. And we've sat silently, and we've wanted to be accepted, and we don't want to be labeled as this dogmatic religious extremist. And so we've compromised these things, and it's time that we've got to stop that. Yes, we're to do all things in love. But listen, it didn't say we're to accept all things in love. We're to stand for the things that are right. So God gave the nation of Israel, He said, this is what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a mandate, and I want you to remember what the mandate did for you. He gave this country a mandate. Just read our history, of which they're trying to change in our books in the schools. They're trying to change some of that and cause it to look bad as to what we did and all of these things. Listen, we've got to see a place where we go back and say, you know what? Let me just read this. I remember that 498,000 people died in the Civil War. To get the freedoms we have, to be at the place we are at, whether we like the outcome or don't like the outcome of any war, 498,000 lives were lost in the Civil War. You say, well, that was foolish. They shouldn't have done that. It had to happen to get us where we're at. It had to happen. And then we go on down in World War I, 116,000 lives. 116,000 lives. And then we have World War II, 405,000 lives. 405,000 lives out of the U.S. That's not overall. You get to World War II and you talk about all the atrocities in lives, you're talking 70 million people died. And we have Americans that have died and paid a price, and we want to burn this? We think anybody has the right to burn this when it's symbolic of the great nation that was founded on the blood of men and women? Anybody, you don't have right of free speech. That's not right of free speech. Listen, it's like we think, well, we don't want our freedom of speech taken away. Well, we don't. But I also don't want legalized crime. Thank you. I was trying to think of a word that would match what I feel, and I couldn't find one that I could speak from a pulpit. So, but seriously, people, I mean, you know this, and I'm preaching to the choir, and but you know all of this. You know what I'm saying? But we've got to remind each other. Look at this with honor and pride. Look at these men and women that have served, and that's the heroes. That's the men our sons and daughters ought to be looking at. Not these clowns on a basketball court or a football field that can't even make it through a day without messing their own life up. Not some woman that'll take half her clothes off and sing and dance and call that something that young girls ought to pattern their life after. One of the biggest problems we're having in our country is keeping women's tops on. My God! I mean, have you seen the news? It's talking about this huge problem that all this attire is not fitting correctly. I guarantee you, bring them to a good old church like this, and you women can dress them, and they'll stay dressed. And I'm serious. It's like that is what we've already seen: indecent exposure, which is illegal. But we have said, okay, because it's Hollywood. We've said it's okay to break the law because you're Secretary of State. We've said it's okay for you to have a lady working for you from the time she was in college till this very day that is tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. We've said that doesn't deserve vetting her. It doesn't deserve finding out why all this has happened. We have a Secretary of State who's now running for president that went to a college where one of the professors there is a known terrorist supporter. And she acknowledged him as one of the great people because of the ties that she's made with American colleges. Listen, we've got to look deeper into these things. I'm not against Hillary Clinton because she's a woman. I'm against her because she's not American. I'm against her because she does not want to see this country succeed and go with the Constitution and the things that we have in place right now or had in place. I'm against the things that are happening in our country because they are trying to change the fabric of our country. We were founded on religious freedom, yes, but religious freedom is not some group that comes in and kills people. Now, I'm sorry, but we've got all this mixed up. We're confused about things. And it's like we're seeing those that are right being told that they're wrong, and those that are wrong being told that not only are they right, but they have rights over those who are morally right. Yeah. Now, if that's not confusion, I don't know what is. Now, if you hear this and you were to get it, if anybody ever listened to it outside of this room, then I would be this horrible person that's judgmental, that thinks that we're unaccepting and that we're not open to anybody. We're open to everybody. I'm telling you, I believe God can change everybody. I saw Megan, what's her name? Yeah, on Fox News interview this man that was a woman by his dress. And they just had this big old time. And they were just talking about how this one that was a man, that's now a woman, which is hard to, anyway, all dressed up and I mean, just looked like a woman. How many of you saw that?
Anyway, that she was all, I mean, it'd fool you. It'd fool you. But when he said, he said, I don't know how you would say, he said, while being a she, to Megyn Kelly, I love waking up to a beautiful man. And Megyn Kelly said, amen, isn't it the greatest? I want to say, what's wrong with you two? I mean, you're relating to a man that wants to wake up with a man. And you're saying amen to it like it's church. It's like, what is... And people look at these people like Megyn Kelly as someone who, if she accepts it, shouldn't we all? I'm telling you. This is not popular, what I'm saying. But I'm tired of the church going in the closet and those that should be in the closet coming out. Sin is sin and shame is shame. And I am ashamed of the things that this country is now saying should be perverted in front of should be brought out in perversion in front of our young people. I'm sorry. Call me old, say, yeah, well, he's just too old. He's not of this new group that can accept it. Well, you're right. People will look at you and just think, well, you're just, you're from the old school. Well, I'm telling you what, we better get people back in the old school, or there's not going to be a school. You're right. And we're already trying to see changes made So, okay, now, if we can't learn from our past, we can never change our tomorrow, both as a country and as an individual. If we can't learn from our past, if everything I ever did in my life was condoned and okayed, it renders me powerless to ever change my future, because I will always be what I was when I was wrong. You see what I'm saying? And so if we can't learn from our past, if we're so arrogant and so prideful that we have to condone our past to make it a part of our present so that it'll then become a law in our future, if we're so prideful and arrogant that we can't admit those things that we did wrong, then that's where we're missing the boat. In other words, it's kind of like calling a basketball game. I used to referee when I could make it up and down the court as fast as they get. And this is the last year I refereed. This is what they told me. You can no longer point at a young player and say foul, because that's demoralizing to them. That would make them feel like you're pointing at them. And I said, well, I am. They fouled, but you can't make them feel wrong. So I said, well, what do? You point to the floor. Foul. Isn't it right, Loren? I mean, it's like, and I thought, that is so crazy. So I'm like, foul, because of all this. Well, have you read what's happening in Pennsylvania, I believe, or North Carolina? I'm not sure. Now one school or some schools in this district are saying that you cannot honor valedictorians anymore because it makes the others feel like they hadn't succeeded. Guess what? They didn't. Guess what? I was not valedictorian. You know what that meant? I was not the smartest one in the school, or I didn't apply myself. But you see what we're doing? We're doing this in all of culture. When BJ was in school, he studied. He liked studying. He did. But you know what our school system was built around at that point? Put them all in a group. Put several kids that won't excel in group with him and give them an average grade, give them the grade that they all have. Because BJ wanted a good grade, he would do all the work for the freeloaders that would just sit in the group. And that's what they're teaching. That's what they've been teaching our culture. Get on the coattail of somebody and just ride them through. Get on the coattail of the government and ride them through. You see, if the government has ever got the power to give you everything you want, they also have the power to take everything you've got. That's it. And we've got to understand that. So, you'd think I'm about to run for office. But I'm not. Listen, you see, in history, freedom has been bought with blood. You won't get freedom. You can get chaos, anarchy, and bondage. without shedding blood, but you won't get freedom without bloodshed. We didn't get our freedom in this church from sin without bloodshed. And Jesus said, before He went away, He said, I want you to do something in remembrance of me. I want you to take of this cracker, this bread, I want you to take of this and this cup, and I want you to eat this bread, and I want you to drink this cup, and I want you to remember. This is what bought your freedom. This is where it comes. I want you to partake of it. And I want every time you partake of it, I want you to remember. I don't want you to throw me in the ring of being some lustful person that had affairs with Mary Magdalene. I want you to remember what's right. I want you to remember that I came in the flesh, that I was sinless, that I gave my body and I gave my blood for your freedom. So we have to honor the things that God has told us to remember. But you know, it carries over to our country. It carries over to everything we're doing to remember what God has done. This country is where we are. I'm telling you, because some people were wise enough at one point in time to reach out and embrace the nation of Israel. Oh, we won't talk about that now. It's just, well, do we want to support them or not? And does our president have the right to shun Netanyahu? Does our president have the right to do all that? It's just about that. Listen, it's more than that. If this country knew what's at stake, if we really knew what's at stake, then there would be no tolerating this anti-Semitism that we have. There would be none of that. But because we haven't kept the story alive, because we haven't kept the truth alive, so often our young people don't know the importance of remembering what got us to this point. And then we're going to be so all-inclusive that people from all over this world come to this country, escaping the country they were in, and foolishly trying to make this country what they came from, under the concept that it would be better. And we embrace that. You know, I think it was Roosevelt that said, this is what we do. We speak English in America, and you become an American if you want to live here. That was one of the things that was spoken. And I'm not, learn a different language. Whatever. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying that I shouldn't have to change. We shouldn't have to change America to console a minority group of people. But what I'm saying is this, listen, we're the ones being told that we're wrong and have to change. It's time to stand up. I'm proud of America. I'm proud of this flag. I am not proud of the person that holds the office of president, because the office of president deserves the highest honor and respect, and that person to be a person that brings honor and respect to that office. Right. I'm not for Hillary Clinton because she's broken the law and should be in jail this very day. That's right. You say, well, are you for Trump? Yeah. Come on. Listen. I'm going to build a wall. No. Now listen. We have to take what we have to begin to rebuild what we've lost. That's it. And if it takes someone to stir the pot, I'm ready for somebody to stir the pot rather than just get in and be part of the recipe. That's good. You know what I'm saying? Good. And so we've got to do these things. Okay. All right. Galatians 5:1 says, for freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore. Amen. Listen. For freedom Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. It's for freedom that Christ set us free. For freedom that Christ set us free. Stand firm. If we don't, there will be religious yoke of slavery. There will be yoke of slavery in many things, because this is what you have to always understand. Anytime the devil's involved in anything, it comes back to bondage. He brings everything back to bondage. He brings everything back to death. He brings everything back to destruction. So you can say, well, okay, does that mean that any religion that does not honor Christ is satanically driven? Yes. 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 There's only one way to God, and every other way is put in place as a tool of the enemy. You say, well, that is so narrow-mindedness. It's just so narrow-minded. Then the Word is narrow-minded. Because there's only one mediator between God and man, and that's the man Christ Jesus. Do we want to see other people come to Christ? Yes. Do we go out and kill them because they won't? No. But we don't compromise it. I do not embrace Allah. I do not embrace the Muslim faith or the Quran that teaches that infidels are to be either converted or destroyed. I don't care whether you're a peaceful Muslim or you're not a peaceful Muslim. You follow the Quran, and the Quran is very explicit in what it says. And so you're always like, wow, then we're just going to be this redneck church that doesn't fit into the world. I'm serious, people. We've got to stop, and if we can't stop the world, we can stop here. We can stop here, okay? Okay. It is for freedom that Christ set us free. I'm not going back into that place where I didn't have Christ. I don't like bondage. I don't like the bondage of sin, and I don't like the bondage of government. And God gave us this nation so that we would be able to celebrate and enjoy all of our freedoms. Right. Not give them away to radical groups that want to destroy what God has given us. Stand strong. Be strong. Pray hard. Understand the times you live in, because they're very critical times. In 100 years, we've gone from where we would have never, we can't comprehend. We can't comprehend a brush arbor meeting. We can't comprehend no air conditioning or heat or the dissatisfaction with either one. We can't comprehend going out to the outhouse. Guaranteed there wasn't women's meetings in those. I had to say that because women all gather up in those places. When we were downtown, they even wanted us to move a couch in one, a bathroom. Man, if I saw a man sitting in there, I probably wouldn't tell him to go to the women's bathroom. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We didn't have couches in the men's room. You get in and get out. I have no idea where that came from or what it's got to do with anything. We've come a long way in 100 years, people. And if we don't vote right, if we don't do right, we don't start implementing the right things that God has given us, we're going to end up losing the things that these men and women that we've talked about today died for. I choose to remember that not only did they give their life, they gave it for a reason. And I am dishonoring them unless I stand for the cause that they died for. Right. We have to. We have to honor those men and women. My gosh, we've got to honor those men and women. Those boys, young girls, just boys, marched up hills and gave their life. Jumped off a boat at Normandy, jumped off a boat on D-Day. Yes. Thousands killed while they were running to take so that we wouldn't be taken. Part of our Christian heritage is standing on truth and standing for what's right. And it's time for the church to stand again. Amen. That's good. It's time to put your hand over your heart when the national anthem's being played. It's time to say, if you don't love this country enough to honor our flag, then leave this country. It's time to say, we set precedent here. And the precedent we set is there's honor and integrity in everything we do. And if we have violations in our political system of people breaking the law, we should demand that they go by the same rules that you and I go by. You say, well, how do we do it? yell loud, talk strong, and stand firm in the freedoms that we've been given. We're going to end today with another song, if you will. What I'm going to ask, those of you that stood that were a part of the armed forces, I want you to come up here. Come on up here on stage. Come on up here, guys. You see these guys right here? You see some of them have a little trouble walking up the steps because of what happened to them in war. You see some of them were a part of a war that Agent Orange was used, and it's affecting their very health today. Some of them have seen death like none of us have ever imagined. It's not just the ones that died. There's many more that live with pain because of what they gave. There's many more that sit out in our auditoriums all across our country that have trouble standing up. Not because they played too hard when they were younger, but because they gave their whole body for a cause. Greater love has no man than that he lay down his life for his friends. These guys came back. These guys are here. But they did stand in the gap for you and I. They did it. They did it. And so if anybody's watching this video, disregard everything I've said, but let me tell you something about this church. These are the heroes. These are the heroes. These are the men that count. Hold that for me. All right. What we're going to do is I want these men to stand up here and we're going to join Josh one more time. And we're going to sing it like we've never sung it before. We're going to honor our country. Amen. And we're going to honor these men.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous flight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, but both bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Amen. Mike, if you would you dismiss us with a prayer over this day? Wow. How do I follow this? You know, I came this month. Last night I was sitting and I was just thinking about today. And I've met a young man that was in the Gulf War. He has 2 Purple Hearts and he has a Berlin Star. And I sent him a text last night and I thanked him for his time given to the service. And he sent me one back and he thanked me for it. But, you know, there are so many that didn't come back. There's so many that came back maimed. And, you know, it breaks my heart. Every time the Star Spangled Banner is sung, it brings tears to my eyes. I gave 10 years for that flag. 10 whole years. And to see people stomp on it and burn it. And I'm so proud of the young men at Grace. You know, Josh who's in Virginia, and JR who's going to Japan, and Jacob who's in Nebraska. All of us, I pray, have answered the call in regards to Christ in our life. But these men, these young guys, have answered another call. And that call is to serve that flag. We've got to be very, very, very proud of them. I know I am of my son. You know, I mean, there's been a lot of things in his life. But God has brought him out. And every single one of those young men, I pray that their light shines. Their light shines among everyone. That flag. God bless that flag. Thank you. Father God, this is a great day. This is a great day, Father. And Lord, I know there's a lot of people out there that are, okay, tomorrow is actually Memorial Day. And there's going to be picnics and there's going to be parties. But during that time, Father, just let them remember this day and what it stands for. And now, Father, I ask that you bless all of us here, Father. Bless veterans and all these other churches. And guide us safely home, Father. And I thank you and I praise you. And I give you all the glory. In Jesus' name. Amen.